Hello everyone, I am Gurudat. This is the fourth video of Law of Evidence. In this video, we'll be dealing with relevancy of fact and admissibility of fact or evidence. In the last three videos, we have studied evolution of law of evidence, important terminologies related with law of evidence, for example, document, fact in issue, relevant fact, evidence itself, and also we have seen the chapterization, the chapter scheme of law of evidence. Now in this video we'll be starting with relevancy first, then admissibility. But before starting relevancy, first we'll have a look at section 5. Section 5 says that evidence may be given of the existence or non-existence of every fact in issue and of relevant fact and of no others. So basically it is limiting the scope of evidence which should be submitted in court. How it is limiting? It is saying that only those evidence which are either proving or disproving the existence or non-existence of every fact in issue and relevant fact and of no others. So if some evidence is not related with fact in issue or relevant fact, then that evidence should not be submitted in court of law. That's what this section is saying. Therefore it is limiting the scope of evidence to be submitted in court. It has an explanation attached with it. You should read it. Now it also has an illustration attached with it. I have specifically shown this evidence, this illustration in this slide, because I want to tell you that often now you are in 9th semester and you'll be soon becoming a lawyer. Whenever you are studying criminal law, make sure that you are focusing also on the illustration provided under the section, if there is some illustration, because these illustrations also limit the scope as well define the area or give example how that particular section should be applied. So always read illustrations at least 2-3 times to understand the section in a better way. Now illustration of this section says that A is tried for the murder of B by beating him with a club with the intention of causing his death. At the trial, following facts are in issue. Now how to determine what is fact in issue? That's what this illustration is trying to show. Because as a good lawyer, you should always be very clear about every case, that what is the fact in issue in that particular case. While I was interning in Delhi High Court, one of the senior advocates said that during the argument, that if a advocate exactly understand the fact in issue, half case is won. So make sure that whenever you are given some criminal problem or you are facing some criminal case, you should clearly understand what are different facts and what is fact in issue. Now in this case, fact in issue is beating B with club, causing B's death with such beating, and intention to cause death. These three things are fact in issue, while the first two are actus reus. The last one is mens rea. Actus reus is the physical act and mens rea is the mental criminality. Now let's come forward to the to understand what is logical relevancy and legal relevancy. See, what is logically relevant is very easy. A layman can tell you what is logically relevant or what is not logically relevant. But what is legally relevant is extremely difficult thing. A logically relevant thing can be defined as a fact is said to be logically relevant to another when it bears such casual relation with the other as to render probable the existence or non-existence of the latter. All facts which are logically relevant are not legally relevant. Now what is legally relevant? One fact is said to be legally relevant to another only when one is connected with the other in any of the ways referred to section 6 to 55 of the Act. Therefore, while what is logically relevant can be understood by simply looking at the fact, but what is legally relevant, for determining what is legally relevant, you have to study law of evidence and section 6 to 55. Only if the connection between two fact is the relationship between two fact is governed under section 6 to 55, then only it will be legally relevant. Whatever is legally relevant will by default be logically relevant. but whatever is logically relevant may not be legally relevant. You have to understand this also. May not be. It may be legally relevant, but it may not be legally relevant. Now let's see what is relevancy and what is admissibility. Relevant means that which is logically probative. Admissibility is not based on logic but on law and strict rules. So a layman can tell you what is relevant, but what is legally relevant has to be seen from section 6 to section 55, and only if something is legally relevant then only it will be admissible. Therefore admissibility is not based on logic. For example, somebody takes some evidence and reaches the court and present the evidence and says that, sir, please accept my evidence, it is proving that A has murdered B. Now if that evidence is somehow admissible in court of law, if that evidence is somehow admissible in court of law, then only court can admit. And whether it is admissible or not admissible will not depend upon the judge. It will depend upon strict rules and law that is made for accepting the evidence. Therefore admissibility is based on logic, is not based on logic but on law and strict rules. Judges themselves can't decide whether something is admissible or not. They have to completely follow rules and logic, then only evidence can be admitted in court of law. The terms relevancy and admissibility are not coextensive and are not interchangeable. You'll find many times that even teachers interchangeably use the word relevancy and admissibility, but they are completely different terms. There are certain evidence which are relevant, legally relevant, but are not admissible. We will study further that. All admissible evidence is usually relevant, but all relevant evidence are not admissible. We will see examples in the future. Relevancy is a genus of which admissibility is a species. I hope you understand what is genus and what is a species. For example, cat is a genus, tiger is a species. Cat is a larger genus and tiger is a species of that genus. Similarly, relevancy is a larger circle, and under that larger circle, admissibility is a smaller circle. This is circle of relevancy and this is circle of admissibility. Now let's come to section 6. Relevancy of facts forming part of same transaction. Section 6 contains the principle of res gestae. In America and in England it is known as res gestae. In India we have not used that term, but we have contained the principle in under section 6. Now section 6 says that facts which though not in issue are so connected with the fact in issue as to form part of the same transaction are relevant whether they occurred at a time and place or at different time and places. Now again, A and B had fight with each other. A killed B. Now for example, let's again see this illustration. Okay, A is tried for beating B with club. Now these things are fact in issue. We have studied it. These things are fact in issue. Now other things can also become relevant fact if they are under the same transaction, happening under the same transaction. And what is the same transaction? For example, before A murdered B, there was a argument between A and B provoked A to beat him. After the provocation provided by B, A killed him. Now this provocation, although it may not directly be related with A murdering B, but this provocation will also form part of the same transaction because it happened so connected with each other with the fact in issue. It was so that provocation was so connected with the fact in issue, these three facts, that it also became part of the same transaction. So that's what section 6 says. Facts which not in issue are so connected with fact in issue as to form part of the same transaction are relevant whether they occurred at the same place or time or at different place or time. So that provocation might be given immediately before the fight, or that provocation might have been given on phone also. Then also that provocation will form part of the same transaction. Res gestae. Facts forming part of a transaction are described by English and American writers as being part of res gestae, that is, things done in the course of transaction. Now, this section has 4 important illustrations attached with each other. To understand whether anything which happened just before or after the fact in issue is part of same transaction or not, just to explain these things, 4 illustrations are attached with this section. Let's see all these 4 illustrations. A. First illustration. A is accused of B's murder by beating him. Whatever was said or done by A and B or by bystanders at the beating or so shortly before or after it form part of the same transaction and is a relevant fact. So, if bystanders were shouting "Maro, Maro, Maro" and A killed B, then this particular act of bystanders will also form part of same transaction. So A can plead in court of law that I was being provoked by bystanders, though it is not directly related with fact and issue, but still it become part of same transaction because it is a relevant fact. A is accused of waging war against the government of India by taking part in an armed insurrection in which property is destroyed, troops are attacked, goals are broken open. The occurrence of these facts is relevant as forming part of the same transaction, though A may not have been present at all of them. For example, there is some group which is fighting against India, the concept of India, waging war against India as a state. Now, when they are fighting against India, uh, every member of that group, it is not possible for every member of that group that he will be involved in every act. Some will be doing involved in IT act, in information technology, using Facebook and instigating people. Some might be directly procuring arms, some might be attacking, some might be financially depriving, collecting resources for this movement. So all these people, all these acts will be relevant act because they are part of the same transaction. And what is the transaction? Waging war against the government of India. They all are doing something which is part of same transaction, and that is waging war against government of India. So all these things will become relevant fact, and evidence of whether proving or disproving these things will be admissible in court. Now let's see illustration C. A sues B for a libel contained in a letter forming part of correspondence. Letters between the parties relating to the subject out of which the libel arose and forming part of the correspondence in which it is contained are relevant fact, though they do not contain the libel itself. Now, A sues B for libel contained in a letter. A sues B for a libel contained in a letter forming part of a correspondence. Now, if case starts against libel means defamation through written letters. Now, if case starts for if A institutes case of defamation against B, then not only the letter which contains the libel, but all the communication between A and B will be relevant fact. There might be series of letters. For example, there might be 10-20 letters which A wrote to B and B wrote to A. Only one letter contained the libel part on the basis of which case has been filed. But still, all other letter will form part of the same transaction in this particular case. D. Question is whether certain goods ordered from B were delivered to A. The goods were delivered to several intermediate persons successively. Each delivery is a relevant fact. You order Flipkart product, Flipkart passes it on to their courier company. The courier company passes it on to his employee, the delivery boy. The delivery boy give that particular article to your gatekeeper. Now you have that gift from gatekeeper to you take that gift from gatekeeper. Now all these transactions will be relevant. While the basic issue may be the basic dispute may be between Flipkart and you, but all these people will also become part, and all the fact that Flipkart gave it to the courier company gave it to the delivery boy to the gatekeeper, all these things will be relevant fact. Now let's study section 7. Facts which are occasion, cause or effect of fact in issue. Section 7 says that facts are relevant, facts which are occasion, cause or effect, immediate or otherwise, of fact in issue or relevant fact. So Section 7 basically says what are relevant fact, what can be relevant fact. So it has given examples. These fact, if something is causing something, or it is reason of its occasion or effect, immediate or otherwise, will be relevant fact as per Section 7. Facts which constitute the state of things under which they happen is also a relevant fact. State of things means how things were going on in that particular place. Facts which are afforded an opportunity for their occurrence or transaction is also a relevant fact as per Section 7. Now Section 8 says that motive, preparation and previous or subsequent conduct. Now as per Section 8, any fact is relevant which shows or constitutes a motive or a preparation or for any fact in issue or relevant fact. Further, the conduct, previous or subsequent, of a party or his agent or an accused is relevant, which influences or is influenced by a fact in issue or relevant fact. Now, maybe again, let's take the same example: A and B. A murdered B. Now, A's conduct before the event. If A had earlier said that "isko to main marunga, I'll kill this person," then this conduct will also become relevant fact because this conduct is somehow related with the main event, that is A killing B, which took place. So that shows the motive of A, and therefore it becomes relevant fact. Now let's have a quick look at motive and conduct. See, generally in criminal law, just by having motive you cannot be charged. For example, I have a motive of killing somebody, then that this particular thing I cannot be arrested by police by just having motive. I cannot be tried in court of law just by having motive of something. But if I do preparation, then I may be charged under few offenses. For example, dacoity, robbery. In robbery, preparation is also a crime. But when I commit that offense, just by having motive, I cannot be charged. But if I commit the offense, then motive become important. After the offense is committed, the motive becomes important. Motive is moving power which impels one to do an act. It is inducement for doing an act. Evidence of a motive is always relevant, for men do not act wholly without motive. So if somebody is killing A is killing B, then the first thing which police does is police will or any investigative agency will search for motive behind the crime, because it somehow supplement their case, the police case, that the prosecution case, that A committed B because. Now this the answer to this because question is given by the motive. It may be noted that evidence of motive is not sufficient by itself to lead to conviction, nor absence of it to discredit other evidence. There is a clear evidence of that a person has committed an offense, the motives become irrelevant. A murder case based on direct evidence does not become weak just because they want of motive. So if there is no motive, then also the criminal case will sustain. Then also person can be held guilty. But if there is motive behind the particular crime, then the case will become stronger. Similarly, the conduct of a man is particularly important to the law of evidence, for his guilt or a state of mind is often reflected by his conduct. Guilty mind begets guilty conduct. Now, how a person behaved before or after the main thing, the main fact in issue, how was his conduct is also a relevant fact. Conduct must be in reference to the facts in issue or relevant facts. Further, the conduct must be such as influences or is influenced by the fact in issue or relevant fact. Now, how do we see conduct? For example, somebody is very nervous. You go somewhere, a fight broke out between A and B. A killed B, and then A was running away from this spot. Now people have seen that A was running away from the particular room or particular flat. When the people reached there, they found B was lying dead in that particular flat. Now this A's conduct of running away from that spot is somehow it is related with the main event, that is fact in issue. Therefore it becomes a relevant fact. Therefore, conduct is also important and it may become relevant fact depending upon the time. Thank you. In the next video, we'll be further discussing section 9, 10, 11, 12. Thank you. So in this video, we have seen section 8, which says that motive, preparation, or previous or subsequent conduct can become relevant fact. Fact which are occasion, cause, and effect of fact in issue will become relevant fact. And what are facts? What are things which form part of same transaction? So we have seen sections 5, 6, 7, and 8 in this video. Revise it once and do have a Bayer Act and read from Bayer Act also.